Well, when I initially, thought of doing the rarities thing, I just had a vague idea of, oh, I have all these old demos that I think are pretty cool. But when I went through all of my old 4-track tapes, all my old digital recordings, and then including my newer Pro Tool recordings, I couldn't believe I have hundreds and hundreds. I have like 1,000 demos, and even modern demos, and it's crazy. The most difficult thing with the rarities process was just picking the songs and um, and just deciding which ones to shrink down into 20 songs. Now, multiple people have said, dude, there's 20, 30 songs here, you need to shrink it down to 10 or something. In the end, I decided just to make it like 21 songs, and it just is what it is. It's probably 2-3 volumes worth of music, but I'm putting it all into one volume. And then eventually, maybe one day, I'll release it as multiple volumes. But the Pledge Music thing, that's going to be the whole thing for super cheap. Well, I mean, it's been a really long journey. I think it's probably been the longest Pledge Music campaign. I think it's been 2 years, and to some people's frustration, it and more so my own, I think, than anybody. It's been easily the hardest record I've ever had to make. A lot of doors that I knocked on didn't open, and some of them just weren't the right thing to do. And I always decided to go with my gut and do what I felt was right. And I got support from so many of you who continuously said that. Anytime you could see that my frustration, and I thank you. The album is done. It's mastered. The artwork's finished. I'm shooting for a release of September 22nd. I always start with acoustic guitar and piano every time. And then when I go into the studio, we choose what instruments are going to be on there, whether it be mellotron or strings. But it's different with a song or with an album like Return of the Frog Queen, because that was very, obviously it had an orchestra in there, and so that was determined way ahead of time. So that was the only album that was pretty conceived before the studio. Well, I mean, I love music. I love playing music. Um, but I think that what keeps me going is just the fact that I'm alive. And to me, I'm like super grateful for just being here. It's something I meditate on when I'm not feeling so good, to just realize that this is an incredibly weird gift that we have, life, and I am honored to be able to be a part of it, as chaotic as it is and as beautiful as it is. So that's a pretty inspiring thing. Keeps me going. Social media is so difficult for me to do. I'm just not I'm naturally very shy. I don't want to put myself out there. I've never been a career-minded person, but social media is amazing. It allows people who can't get out there easily now. So it's amazing, and it's helping me, but it means I have to expose who I am, and I always feel like I do that in my music. But I actually would love to get somebody who just exclusively helps me do social media, so that I actually do it right, because nobody knows that I'm doing what I'm doing, because I don't really do it appropriately. But yeah. This is so difficult, this question, because I don't want to be a crybaby, but the music, a longing, a searching, I think when I'm in the meditation of writing music, there is a searching and a longing, if that is an emotion. I think that would be the closest thing. It's very hard to be really specific about this one because there's a whole array of emotions, obviously anger and joy and happiness, whatever. From the immortal words of Tenacious D, "Paying the Rent." I think that the greatest story for me is just the fact that when I felt when I hit a wall, I reached out to my friends in Spain and they rolled the carpet out and made it happen for me so easily that it was a godsend. It was an absolute. They just made it so easy and took me on a journey back to Spain again and redeveloped those relationships. And that was probably the most powerful, good story, I guess, that I've had with this experience. That was past the writing stage. The songs were more or less already written, but the way that it was being produced hadn't been developed yet. Santi is an extremely, he's a very focused producer. He knows what he wants and what he gets, and he delivers it every time. He's always going to deliver you something that's solid, and you can always count on him. But there was one song. It's called "Light and Shadow." It's going to be the first song on the record. That song was an experiment in the studio. Has the energy of. I think it contains the most energy of our experience in Spain together. My favorite beer at home in Seattle is called Manny's. It's from Georgetown in Seattle. Actually, typically my favorite lager of all time is Pacifico, no doubt. But if I want an ale, it's called Manny's Ale. I love it. I drink it too much, as you might be able to notice. I don't know. But I'm really digging this Brooklyn lager that I got here today, here in Brooklyn. I have a small record collection, but it's almost entirely U2. Basically, many years ago, an old acquaintance of mine was selling everything that he owned, and he had the most comprehensive U2 collection that I've ever seen. All the singles dating from before Boy, their very first record, all this stuff. So I just bought everything from him for $200, and so I have all that, and then I have a collection of REM and stuff. But I would say out of all the records on there, probably the original Boy with the original cover, which was for some reason they discontinued it at the time. It was the very first U2's very first record. I mean, I assume that you mean live. I occasionally revisit Sunny Day Real Estate songs on stage acoustically. They're very difficult to play because the screaming, it's just destroyed my voice permanently. So they're somewhat difficult to sing, but I do occasionally. I do. It's all a part of me. So there you go. Okay, so I'm just going to say, for the sake of making a decision, how it feels to be something on. And that's a song about just what it's like to be, how it feels to be something on, like the turning on of the light switch, turning on the soul and inspiration and passion. And I like the meaning of that song, and so that might be a good answer. Um, it changes all the time. If I listen to that song, it's probably not my favorite musical song, but the meaning of it, possibly. So let's just call it that for now, and I'll change my mind later. Yeah, I would love to tour internationally. In fact, I am seriously considering moving to Barcelona for a residency for a short period of time, and using that as a hub to go out to various countries in Europe and around the world. It's just a matter of setting it up. Not at this time. Usually, I always start with sitting down with an acoustic guitar, or electric for that matter, a guitar and piano, and coming up with a riff that I think is interesting. And then I start humming a melody, singing a melody in gibberish. I really don't always have full-on lyrics. And then I start to sing this melody over top the thing, and then it starts to formulate eventually into lyrics. And at the very last moment, when I'm in the studio, I scramble to write the lyrics. And it's torture, it's painful, I should do it before I get in the studio, but I don't. I always finish them in the studio. And that's the process in a nutshell.